Good day. My name is Joe Spease. I'm the CEO of WindSoHy. We are a compressed air energy storage green hydrogen project development company. We most often would prefer to connect those technologies with wind power, but solar power, any renewable energy will work. And today I'm going to share with you a presentation that really explains the technology very well and why it must be used if we hope to decarbonize the grid. Give me a moment here while I adjust the screen. There we go. Need to bump it up to the beginning. This is what we're trying to do. We're providing essential tools for a clean energy future that will include clean, firm power, long-duration energy storage, and low-cost hydrogen that is an essential component of what we're trying to do. We take advantage of markets that exist, especially time of use rates in the energy markets. We've made some improvements with the geologic options that will make it possible to develop projects with this technology in more locations around the world. And of course, we have developed the ability of hydrogen combustion in a hydrogen combustion chamber, which had never been done, working with Siemens Corporation to make sure that our projects in this technology are completely clean and renewable. The centerpiece of our system is, of course, compressed air energy storage. When I talk about compressed air energy storage, I shorten that to CAES, C-A-E-S. So you understand when I'm using that phrase instead of the longer word to describe it. We have a problem. The wind and the sun don't always blow or shine, and that's going to require energy storage for those times. And there are several storage options out there. You have battery energy storage options. There's pumped hydro storage. There are other technologies that are trying to get their foot in the door to try and solve the problems in the grid. But CAES really has clear advantages for solving the problems in the grid, especially those connected with intermittent wind and solar power. In our system, energy is stored by compressing air and then releasing it. It creates large volumes of energy when needed. These projects done our way will usually start with a minimum of 300 megawatts, but can grow as large as 1,500 megawatts with several days of storage. And what's really good about it is that it's actually proven technology. There's a CAES plant that's been operating in Alabama since 1991. So that's over 30 years of just proven performance. It's the most reliable generating source of any kind in the country, has a 98% reliability rating, but it's needed some improvements. The overall system efficiency needed to be improved. The Alabama plant operates at about 55% efficiency round trip. Our system will be right at 70% for a number of reasons. And then, of course, the geology up until now has been limited to creating caverns in a salt formation. But as most people are aware, the types of salt formations needed are only limited to a few places in the United States, of course, but around the world. It's going to be a lot more practical for development if we can develop these geologies like saline aquifers and depleted oil and gas wells. Since, for example, 80% of the United States, if we include those types of cavern options and those geologies, 80% of the United States would have some type of geologic formation needed to make CAES work. That really opens up the country to widespread CAES technology project development. Just to explain too, the hydrogen in our system, and these are large component hydrogen elements in the project is used for the sole purpose of reheating the air. There's a phenomenon in physics when that air under pressure is released, it supercools, and that creates two problems in the system. First, it gets so cold that it could damage the blades in the turbo machinery. The second problem, which is probably even more important or needs to be addressed, is that for efficiency's sake, cold air doesn't hold the volume of warm air. So it needs to be reheated in order to create efficiencies. You use only a fraction of the amount of air when it's reheated that you would use if it were not heated. So it really improves the efficiency of the system when we use the hydrogen combustion to reheat that air before it hits the turbo machinery. Now we're driving down costs in 4 ways that really improve the economics and enable the long duration of storage in this system. First, we're going to use nighttime wind power, off-peak wind power when available, to power the compressors and the electrolyzers in the hydrogen component. When you're using that off-peak wind power, for example, for the initial projects that we hope to develop in Kansas, if power purchase agreements for wind power are selling for 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour during the day, it stands to reason that that nighttime wind power is going to be far less than that. And indeed, oftentimes because of congestion, those wind projects have a price that floats into the negative pricing range. That gives us a big advantage in this system, which I'll explain more about later. And then we're taking advantage of lots of new technology improvements in compression and in the turbo machinery to help boost the efficiency of the system. And then, of course, when you're using depleted oil and gas wells or saline aquifers for storing the air, that really reduces the cost of the project and increases the profits. For example, to create a cavern in a salt formation would cost somewhere between $75 and $150 million. Whereas if you're just developing the caverns that already exist with the depleted oil and gas wells or the saline aquifer, it will only cost $3 to $5 million to develop those formations. And then, of course, using hydrogen rather than being restricted to natural gas combustion. That Alabama plant that's been working since 1991 uses natural gas combustion in their system. We wanted ours to be completely green, so of course we had to develop the ability of hydrogen combustion, but that is going to help lower prices. At the nighttime wind power price that's used to power the electrolyzers, that drives down the cost of the hydrogen used in heating the air to a point that it's far less expensive than natural gas combustion. So we have price advantages there too. I'm going to skip through the next couple of slides to get to this one, which illustrates the number of times in the California ISO where wind power wasn't blowing at a speed and capacity big enough over several days to generate power. Each of the rows on this chart illustrate a month. Then the numbers that are circled are the number of days when the wind wasn't blowing strongly enough to generate power from the wind project. As you can see, if you're using battery energy storage, for example, and you have several days where the wind wasn't blowing, you're in trouble. So battery energy storage is just not going to solve the major problems in the grid. You must have long duration energy storage like a CAES technology that can provide several days of storage. This is another illustration that points out a number of things, but first of all, you just need to understand that in addition to being a less effective solution in the grid, battery energy storage also is far more expensive than CAES. The DOE and the Lazard levelized cost of storage studies show clearly that lithium batteries for energy storage in the grid provide power at about $150 per megawatt hour. And that's just for 4 hours duration. That is a very expensive solution, if you can call it that, or a non-solution to the problems that we have in the grid. I'll now just walk through this illustration that shows you precisely how the CAES system works. Again, you can use solar power, but the preferred power source is wind power at night. So using that in this illustration, we're going to use wind power at night to power the compressors in the CAES system that will generate the air that's injected deep underground, in our case, into saline aquifers or depleted oil and gas wells. At the same time, that wind power at night will be used to power the electrolyzers, the hydrogen electrolyzers. And we will make that hydrogen and also store that for use when needed with the system. And then, of course, when the air is released, as I explained before, it has to be reheated before it hits the turbo machinery. So that's when we would use the hydrogen combustion. And once that is done, the turbo machinery works, the electricity is produced, and now you have a 100% clean baseload power that solves the problem of what happens when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, and that firm baseload power is sent into the grid. I'm also going to skip these next slides, but first of all, you need to know that in our case, for our initial projects, we've selected Kansas because it has that combination of assets necessary to make an effective system work. With that abundant wind resource in the wind corridor states and with the superior wind resource in Kansas, we obviously will have access, in our case, to lots of curtailed wind power actually at night, so those prices will be very low. We're also going to have dedicated wind projects for our system. But in addition to that superior wind resource, there is an abundance of the depleted oil and gas wells and saline aquifers needed for storing the air. And that is going to make it very, very easy to get projects developed here and also in other parts of the country, but especially in Kansas. This is just a map that indicates where we hope to develop our projects. And now getting into kind of a summary explanation here of the benefits of the CAES technology. As I said before, grid-scale battery storage is really expensive at $150 per megawatt hour. With our system, we'll be able to generate baseload power, clean baseload power, with 5 days of storage at about 5 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour. That is a huge price advantage over battery energy storage. And then we come in with, in our case, we're shooting for a minimum of 5 days of storage. We could get more. It will depend on the size of the project. But that's 5 days of storage at full rated power of between 300 and 1,000 megawatts in size. And I want to emphasize again, in order to make these projects profitable, is very simple. You have to have a price difference between the price of the energy used, the electricity used to power the compressors and the electrolyzers. And in our case, if we're somewhere between nothing and 1/2 cent per kilowatt hour, and we can sell that electricity for 5 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour, that makes for a very, very profitable system that also will solve lots of problems in the grid. We do intend to provide ancillary services like spinning reserve and voltage support and frequency regulation, along with just delivering baseload electricity. So we will solve lots of problems in the grid at a preferable rate. So going forward, We're going to be looking for utility partners, including co-ops, to partner with us in building these projects. We will also be seeking additional uses for the green hydrogen that is part of the CAES system. That will add to the profitability of our projects, but it's a tremendous technology that's going to do a lot to improve the ability of clean energy to power our grid. This shows you, this is a chart provided by the Department of Energy. Lazard's levelized cost of storage has similar information, but what this illustrates is that at a large scale, when you get up to a size of about 1,000 megawatts, CAES is represented by the circle in the bottom left-hand corner of this chart to show you that it's the least expensive long-duration energy storage technology, and it can also be scaled up to a very large size. Again, there really isn't a technology like CAES green hydrogen that will really solve problems in the grid at beneficial rates. We're going to be working with lots of different corporate power buyers. The recent phenomenon of corporations like Apple and Google and Amazon getting involved in buying clean energy. We will certainly talk to those people. Rural electric co-ops have been incentivized in the Biden Inflation Reduction Act bill to transition to clean energy, including energy storage. So we hope to partner with rural electric co-ops in getting projects built. And then the top 100 companies nationwide have been involved in virtual power purchase agreements. We'll hopefully be talking with some of them. And then we're going to be partnering with investors who will realize very soon the rewarding profitability of these CAES Green H2 projects. I'm going to skip through these slides too, just dealing with the growing market for clean energy. I'm sure most of you have read about that. So we're ready. We're going to be starting in the Southwest Power Pool to get projects built. We're going to be looking for contracts with major power users, the large utilities, or rural electric co-ops. And we'll also be making available renewable energy credits, because we will be providing completely clean energy into the grid. So we'll be solving lots of problems that we think will help to improve performance of clean energy in the grid. And we just need the partners to make that happen. If you have questions about any of this, we're happy to answer them. You can contact WindSoHy, me, Joe Spease, at the address here, jspease@windsohy.com. The phone number, 913-481-2869. If you have questions, or if you'd like to get a copy of this presentation, just let me know. We're happy to provide that. Thank you, and hope to be talking to more of you very soon.